Be sure to watch until the end. These scary true hospital ghost stories will cause fright at night, so don't watch alone. I was a new nurse at a hospital in Tucson and had only been working there a couple of months. I had brought a patient of mine up to surgery from the ER for an endoscopy, and they called back down and asked me to bring her family up because she only spoke Italian and not enough English, and they needed someone to consent for the procedure. After dropping them off, I walked past the waiting room to head back down the hall to the elevators. I took the back way to get to the ER, and the hallways are all deserted. It used to be the pediatric wing of the hospital, but that has been shut down for years, and the rooms are just empty and full of broken equipment and broken beds. As I reached the old nurse station at the T-junction between the pediatric hallway and the hallway that goes to the elevators, I saw a little girl standing across from the nurse's station further down the hall. She had pigtails, was wearing a brown dress, white shoes, and was holding a teddy bear. I thought perhaps she was a family member who had walked away from the day surgery waiting room. I was concerned that she would go into one of the rooms and get hurt or lost. So I said, "Hey, little girl, what are you doing? You don't need to be over there. You're going to get hurt." And I walked around the nursing station to go grab her hand and bring her back. I kid you not, she vanished as I got about 10 feet from her. Every hair on my body stood straight up, and I turned and ran like a bat out of hell down to the elevator. I pounded that button for what seemed like an eternity until the elevator got to the floor. As I got back to the ER, I walked up to the nurse's desk, white as a sheet, and one of the older nurses looked at me and said, "What's wrong with you?" I remember babbling like an idiot as I tried to tell them what happened. After listening to me for a moment or two, the nurse said, "Oh, you saw Debbie, the little girl ghost. She's been around here for years." And I remember saying, "Well, thanks for telling me about it before this." Apparently, Debbie the ghost has even been seen down in the ER, ducking in and out of patients' rooms and peeking around curtains. And my wife worked up on the 7th floor, and she said that one night, a whole row of patients in their room started yelling about a little girl that was running down the halls. I guess Debbie gets around. About 7 years ago, I was working in a small step-down unit that was having nighttime staffing issues, so I agreed to rotate to the night shift to help them out. It was a 5-bed, newly renovated unit. Around 3 a.m., I was watching the monitors, listening to the patient snore. Suddenly, the pencil drawer slid open. I didn't think much of it since the hospital was on a very busy street, and I thought maybe it was caused by the vibrations from the traffic on the busy road below. After sliding the drawer closed several times, I decided if the drawer felt it needed to be open, so be it. Several minutes later, I heard a noise in one of the rooms. It sounded like a patient's bathroom door opening and someone pushing an IV pole. Since I didn't have a clear view of the bathroom, I just thought one of the staff members from the main floor had dashed in to wash their hands. I looked up from my monitor to see a patient we recently had in the unit. It was Miss Jackson, an older woman who came in with chest pain and became septic due to a gallbladder issue. But she had passed away in the unit about 2 weeks ago. Although the hospital itself had been on this site for years, the unit was newly renovated, right down to the tearing out of the walls and putting up new ones. I heard the patient's bathroom door open, and again I heard the rattling of the IV pole and shuffling feet. I looked up and saw Mrs. Jackson standing there in the middle of the floor, one hand pushing the IV pole. She stopped walking, turned and waved, nodded her head, said everything was going to be okay, took a few more steps, and disappeared. It was a shocking sight to see. Shortly after that vision, one of the nurses from the main floor came to see if I needed anything. I told her no, I was okay, and asked her if she had ever seen a ghost in the hospital. She looked at me, gasped, and asked, "No, why?" I explained to her what had just happened, and she said that Miss Jackson was the first patient to die in that unit. She was well liked by all the staff, and my feeling is that she was watching over us. The day shift came in, and I told them my story. They weren't surprised. Through my years working at various hospitals, I heard older nurses telling their stories about ghosts. I thought they were just burnt out and imagining things. Yes, there are ghosts in care facilities. If they're not seen, their presence is felt. They leave an energy. I worked at a hospital doing transport for a couple of years in the early 2000s. The transport home base was in the basement of the hospital, where all the laundry is done and supplies are sorted. On this particular night, I was the only one in the basement when I heard whistling at the end of the hallway by the elevator. I poked my head around the corner expecting to see my only coworker on duty that night, but there was absolutely no one there. I shrugged it off. I'm not easily spooked. Nights are slow, so I ate some snacks and hung out in the break room for a bit. The next thing I know, I hear a loud bang. I walked into the hallway, and a bed is rolling down the hall, bumping into the walls. At this point, I think that my coworker is messing with me. I radio him, and he says he's upstairs in the cafeteria. I still didn't believe him and thought I'd catch him in the act. I walk past the laundry room and the washing machine start up. I pop my head in there expecting to find him, but it's completely empty. Okay, now I'm starting to get a little nervous. I walk into the laundry room and the machines completely stop. I freeze, then run out and head towards the elevator when I hear whistling again. At this point, I know I'm the only worker in the basement. As I'm standing there waiting for the elevator, things start falling off the shelves down the hall. Boxes of gloves, tissues, packages of gauze. I'm literally standing there watching them fall off one by one at the opposite end of the hallway. My entire body broke out in goosebumps. My hair stood on end, and I had this strong gut feeling I was being watched, that I was not alone. As I'm getting into the elevator, it feels like someone is brushing my arm. I went upstairs and found my coworker in the cafeteria and just freaked out to him about what had just happened. I got the hell out of there and transferred immediately after that. Maybe the strangest thing about all of it is that I usually whistle mindlessly to myself at work. It was almost as if the spirit, or whatever it was mimicking me. Creepiest feeling ever.